Happy Sewing Machine Day. It's June 13th, and that's in the United States is Sewing Machine Day. So today we have a special treat for you. And as it turns out, one of my return customers brought me this machine right here. So this is a kid's machine. This is actually, it's not a Singer. It's a, I don't know if you can read that. Casi. Made in Germany in the British zone. So I don't know how you would pronounce that if it's German. Casige. She brought me this machine with some parts here, and it needs some oil, needs some lubricating, needs to make sure that this thing still sews because she has a young lady in her life, her daughter, that she would love to play with a little machine like this, which is exactly what these were built for. So this is called a chain stitch machine. So there is no bobbin. It just uses the only one thread on top and feeds that through, and in the bottom there's a mechanism that creates a loop, and it's a chain stitch, so it's a chain of stitches with one thread. And what that means is after you sew with this, you've got to lock off the end, otherwise you can just pull on the end and it'll unravel. Normally a sewing machine like this one back here is a lock stitch, so that's two threads that lock into each other, kind of like that. In this case, it's a chain stitch. So we have some extra parts here. This looks like the tension mechanism here. This I have no idea, so we're gonna find out together. I may have to do a little bit of digging into documentation to see what's going on here with this machine and how it works. It looks like everything inside is moving the way it, possibly the way it should, to grab the thread and make that chain. We have a needle bar. We don't have a needle, so I don't know if this will use a standard needle or if we need something special for this. So that could delay the video if I need to find a special needle. Without any further ado, let's get to the teardown. So we've done a little research. What I have found is our missing needle could be an issue. So we're going to see if we can't figure something out for that, because that could be a problem with getting this machine up and running. One thing I did notice is that this tension adjusting knob seems to be stuck to the shaft, so we're going to have to get that apart. So this piece right here, it could just be your adjuster for the, your little screwdriver, basically. I also thought that maybe, because these would have, and I didn't see any pictures of these, but it would have come with some sort of clamp. At least the Singers do, the clamp to hold it down to your desk, and I believe that's what this cutout's for, so that your little seamstress could attach this to the desk and then be able to use this and not have it move all over the place. So I thought that maybe that could be there, but it's probably just the screwdriver for this. And if this is original to the machine, it's probably pretty rare to have that, but I really have no idea of knowing. There's no markings on it, and there probably wouldn't have been. These are stamped. They did this as inexpensively as possible when they made these in the day. So anyway, let's get back to what we need to do. So we need to find a needle that fits, because I'm kind of stuck without that. And then we also need to unstick this. So we're stuck there, we're stuck here. Let's see if we can unstick ourselves. I'm going to put a little bit of Tri-Flow on here. This is a perfect use for Tri-Flow, using it as a penetrating oil. Don't eat it though. I did a little search online and found that maybe a DA-X1 needle could work, because the shank is the right size. The needles are a little bit long, but you can actually shove it inside and raise it up. So it actually, we got to do some tuning to make sure we're in the correct needle height. But it kind of looks like that we might be in the ballpark for our needle height in here. And we might be good enough to try and then make some adjustments as we go. I don't believe any of these pieces are, well, this one would probably be needed, because you got a needle path there. You know, this is interesting, because I'm pretty sure this piece right here is actually a needle cutter that they have just stamped out of that. That's pretty neat. A thread cutter. I said needle cutter. Thread cutter. Alright, well, before we get into doing that, let's do a little cleaning. So I'm going to go blow it out with the air compressor, and then we will do some oiling. As I'm cleaning this, I always get acquainted with the machine when I'm cleaning it, because you're going into all the places where you don't necessarily look. So what we have here, we got our looper down here. And what I'm noticing is that the back side of the looper is split. Let's see, right in there. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a split. It looks like it's laminated steel. And I can't say for sure if that's something we can fix, but I would like to try this first without making any adjustments, because I've got no documentation, nothing on this machine, so we're just we're gonna see if we can make a stitch consistently. Alright, we got a little bit more cleaning to do, but just wanted to point that out. Alright, now it's time to put a little oil and grease on here. Here. And then anywhere where metal moves on metal, we're going to put a little drop of oil. So to get this presser foot completely straight, I would have to bend the presser foot bar. And I'm sorry, but we're not going to do that today. I can't bring myself to bend any of this for fear that it'll snap. And I don't like snapping things that are from the... Well, yeah, I did a little research. This is probably from the 1950s, 1960s era. At least that's what the internet thinks. I couldn't tell you for sure one way or another. Alright, so how do you unscrew something without damaging it when it's stuck? Step 1, try the cheap vise. 2 layers of towel hopefully protect it. The only problem is I can't tell if it's moving. Put a little marking on there in line with that split in the tension assembly. And that did nothing. Oh, we're getting somewhere. See it? Oh, that hurts. Oh, that hurts. The only question is, do I get it off? Because she may not go back on if I get it off, but I guess it can't be too much worse than it is already. Okay, we got it off, and it looks like we didn't gack up the threads any more than they already were. The threads, I mean, not the threads, but the knurling. And there's our spring. So now we want to clean out these threads. We want to make sure that these threads are good and clean. A little bit of oil. That thing does not like going that far on there. Now, you may not need it to go on that far. It just depends on the amount of tension required. I'm trying to do this backwards and seeing if maybe the threads are messed up on the outside of this. Really makes me want to send a tap through here, so let's take a look at my tap and die set and see if I've got something that matches whatever randomness we have here from the 1950s. Well, we may have the right tap. We're about to find out. That appears to be an M4. I just want to make sure before I run a tap through there and destroy things. So this is an M4 nut. That's going on there. The M4 screw is not going all the way in, so we need to run the tap down and fix those threads. This is a star in another video that I don't know if you've seen the video yet before this one. So that could be a preview or it could be a post view. Is that how you say that? Alright, we're just going to turn this nice and slow. Just because if this doesn't work, I'm going to be learning how to use my lathe. And we're going to have to make a new one. It did get quite a bit of metal out of there. What do you think? You think we can hand screw this on now? Still gets tight, but it goes a lot further. Oh yeah, it still goes. There we go. All the way down, all the way back out. There's a good healthy amount of resistance there, which is good because we want it to stay where we set our timing. We want it to stay where we set our tension, so that good healthy amount of resistance is not bad. Where we really need resistance is going to be where this end goes into the machine. This needs to be screwed in very tight, because when you loosen your tension, you don't want the tension assembly to fall out. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this on there. And then see if this will go in at the end. And let me screw this in tight. There we go. So that's in there good and tight. Tension assembly is ready to go back together, but we're not going to do that just quite yet. We're going to put the covers back on. But while you're watching me fiddle with this, I'm going to read from sew-a-lot.com and what they say about the Casi sewing machine. It's pronounced Casi.
I guess
It was one of the great German toy makers of the 20th century, although original company had been founded some 50 years earlier, specializing in piano locks. The company name comes from a mixture of letters of the founder of the company, Karl Sieper, of Grevenbruch, Gevelsberg, and his town of Gevelsberg, Westfalen in Germany, Casi. A year after Queen Victoria's death in 1901, Karl Sieper II, the grandson of the original company founder, was asked if he could supply cheap, small sewing machines to schools. Karl had already seen the huge Muller toy factory and had a tour. He knew that to expand his company, he needed contracts, and a lucrative school contract would be a good start into the sewing business. The first sewing machine to come off their production lines was the Model 1 in 1902, not the Model 0, which didn't appear until 1910. Who would have guessed it would have survived the World Wars and over 70 years? Who would have guessed it would have survived 2 World Wars and over 70 years? Karl must have known that he was going to produce sewing machines before 1902, as it is impossible to set up such a business so quickly. To change the factory around with the foundry and machining would have taken months, if not years. Casi produced toys from 1902 right up until 1975. Originally, like I mentioned, Casi produced locks, hence the company trademark of a great German eagle clasping a key said to be the key to their success. Casi produced millions of machines in endless patterns and designs. The sunflower designs is one of the prettiest of all their patterns and looks stunning against the black. Based on their Model 2, it was first produced around 1910 and continued up until the outbreak of World War II. Now, normally I wouldn't finish putting together a machine before testing because, you gotta make adjustments and such. But in this case, in order to sew with it, I need to have this part on. The other issue here is there are no adjustments. Like I said before, any adjustments, you're bending metal. So I want to get this working without having to bend any metal. Okay, we got our covers on. Now we'll get our tension assembly put together. I'm so glad that this had all the parts to it. And I don't know how rare that screwdriver is, if it's even rare at all. I don't know. Yeah, now you can change the tension. Look at that. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, and then we got one last screw to put in here. Do a little bit more cleaning to the outside now that we put the covers on. Now, I don't know if the owner of this machine is going to be sewing with a needle and thread, or I believe that she is young, so at this point she may just get this machine without a needle in it to follow along with her mother and do some sewing. Some imaginary sewing. I think that's the age that this young lady is at. But I'll tell you that this machine can be around for her to give her daughter one day, if it's taken care of. Alright, we will use our secret weapon to clean this machine after we're done, making sure that it'll make some sort of a stitch. I'm still not happy with the interaction between the needle and the looper, because the needle's hitting the they're touching, and they shouldn't be touching. because it's gonna blunt your needle and start picking the fabric, which it may do right away. I'm not sure. We'll find out. Let's see if we get a feed. Okay. All right, we are feeding. That's a good start. We don't have a stitch length adjustment on here. We're going to try a different needle. That was a DA-X1. I don't remember if I said that correctly the first time. We're going to try a DB-X1 because I have a smaller needle size for that one. So the DB-X1 is this one. It's shorter. DA-X1 is the shorter one. DB-X1 is longer, but it's a smaller size of needle because you want a smaller size needle for this. Can we be lucky and get a stitch on the first try, or are we going to have to bend some metal to adjust things? Whew. I don't even like saying those words. All right. I've been holding this down with my finger while I turn the hand wheel. Let's see if we can make a stitch. It is not feeding very well. It could be that we have too much tension. Let's loosen up our tension a little bit. We might be making a stitch, ladies and gentlemen. We just might be making a stitch. So I'm going to chain it off here. I don't know if this will make a chain after the fabric's through. So we are just going to do that. What are the odds? What do you think? You think it looks good underneath? So somewhere in this range we loosened our tension. And it looks kind of loose on top. Oh, wow. Look at that chain stitch. Look at that. Yeah, something was up with the tension here. It was tight, and I don't think it was allowing the fabric to advance. And so we ended up with whatever that mess is over there. But once we loosen up that tension, I mean, these are loose, so we could try and tighten up a little bit. And one thing about a chain stitch is you have to lock it off, otherwise you can just pull it completely out just by pulling your thread. So you want to take a loop so we just pulled that through, and now it's kind of locked right there. Let's see if we can duplicate our success. I want to do a little bit tighter tension. Let's go flush with the front here and see what that does for us. Let's see how that feels. Okay. See how we're feeding with that. Okay, it's not feeding the best, so we'll loosen that about a half turn. That's weird. Okay, after a few stitches it just kind of started feeding. I'm gonna have to look at the... Yeah, we're gonna look at this again. And then we want to pull... Yeah, that one's tighter. Once we figured out our stitch... Yeah. I'm wondering if it just doesn't like feeding at first. I don't know. And I think it has to do with that hook down there that's kind of split. But I really don't want to pull that part, because those pieces of metal are staked together. You can't unscrew them. They're like riveted together, and without drilling things and pulling things apart that way, you can't fix it. So that's a double negative. In order to fix it, you would have to drill out rivets, bend metal, and then put everything back together. And that's a little much for what I'm going to do. So I'm actually happy with how we're making a stitch here. I think this is good enough. I will talk with the customer about how this is, and she's also going to see this video. But one thing that you do notice is we got the tension. When the tension is right and it's moving, it's doing really well. If I had my druthers, do people say that these days? If I could get everything in here adjusted perfectly, I would have to adjust our feed dog height, because our feed dogs are not exactly moving perfectly, which could be part of our problem. I would align the needle more to be in the center of the hole for the needle. I would align the presser foot to be more in line with the feed dogs. But all of these things require bending metal. So for a child's toy, we are not going to get this thing 100% operationally perfect. But we are going to have a cute little sewing machine. That's just fun. It's just fun. It's just fun. So if you're working on one of these yourself, I think that the DA1 needles might be your best bet because they're shorter. Here's what I'm going to say about this, other than happy sewing machine day, everyone. I would say that this is probably the worst off sewing machine that I've ever repaired. I'm leaving it slightly better than I got it, but it ain't perfect. So we're not getting a perfect stitch out of it, but I think that's okay for what it is. I am not done cleaning this, so I am going to use my secret weapon, which is a little bit of sewing machine oil. I hope you get your sewing machine out today and make something. Make something good. Make something nice. Make a gift for somebody. Let them know that you're thinking about them on sewing machine day.